The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are today. We are going to give folks just a few more, maybe like 30 more seconds to hop on and join us. While we do that, I did just want to call out that we do have the handouts section. We do have our slides populated there if you wanted to grab them and reference them as we go along. Please note that GoToWebinar has saved the last two decks as well, since this is a series. So if you do want to grab this week's, it's the EDA deep dive. That's what you want to get. The other two are from the last 2 weeks. All right, so we are going to kick it off. Today we are in our third session of our Salesforce Fundamentals for Education series. And today we are doing an education data architecture deep dive. So we talked about education data architecture in the past 2 webinars as well, but briefly. And today we're going to get sort of into the nitty-gritty of it all. And before we go any further, I did just want to do a quick round of introductions. My name is Natalie Vainberg, and I'm a Success Content Specialist here at Salesforce. I've been with Salesforce for close to 4 years now, and prior to that, I actually worked at Cornell University and was a Salesforce customer myself. And joining me today is my colleague Jenna, and I will let her introduce herself.
Great, thanks Natalie. Hi everyone, joining you guys today from Washington, D.C. It's great to chat with you. I am also a Success Content Specialist for the .org on the education team, and prior to this I worked for 10 years in education and was a Salesforce customer myself. Natalie, I'll pass back to you and let you know that we need to advance through the slides. We're still looking at that first slide.
Great, thanks Jenna. Sorry about that, guys. Here we are, so you can put names to faces. All right. Can you see my screen advancing now, Jenna?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So if you've attended either of the last 2 webinars, or if you've been to any other Salesforce presentation, you are probably familiar with this slide. This is our forward-looking statement, and it looks a little scary. There's a lot of text there, but the basic gist is that we ask you to make purchasing decisions based only on current availability, because we can never predict if roadmap timelines change. They frequently do. All right, and on to some logistics. So we are recording this webinar, and we will post both the recording as well as the deck in the Power of Us Hub in that Getting Started group that is linked on the slides here today. So you should see that by probably around this time tomorrow. So you should be able to grab those. And also, we do have a trail mix available so that you can dive a little bit deeper into some of the stuff that we talk about today. So do check that out. And finally, if you do have questions throughout the webinar today, please feel free to post them in the GoToWebinar control panel. And Jenna and I will be monitoring the questions and answering them as they come in. And if there's anything that makes sense to call out for the whole group, we will also do that. All right, and this is our agenda for today. So first, we're just going to go over some education data architecture basics, and going forward, I will just be calling it EDA, just for because it's a mouthful. So we'll cover some basics, and some of it will look familiar because we have referenced it in the past 2 webinars. So if you've attended, it should look the same. However, from there, we'll take a closer look at some of the core EDA objects and how they relate to each other. So that's going to be kind of the crux of this webinar. And from there, we're going to share some next steps and resources with you so you can keep learning about EDA. And of course, we will leave some time at the end for questions. And as I mentioned earlier, we are in week 3 of our 4-week series. So the previous 2 sessions, Planning for Success and Introduction to Education Cloud, are both posted in that Getting Started group, so you can access those recordings if you have not been able to attend. And next week, we are finishing up with reports and dashboards. So that will happen at the same time on Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific and 1 p.m. Eastern time. So please do join us. And if you registered for one of these sessions, you registered for all of them. So no need to do anything else. Just hop on at this time. You'll get a reminder email. And if you can't join us, again, same thing, we'll post the slides and the recording in the Power of Us Hub. All right, and before we kick things off officially, just wanted to do a quick poll to see how familiar you are with EDA. So Jenna, if you wouldn't mind just kicking that poll off for us. So just select what most applies to you, whether you are an expert. Oh, oops, that's actually not the right poll. Let's grab that EDA poll. Sorry about that. Okay, so just asking how familiar you are with EDA. So whether you're very familiar, which means you've been using it for 6 months or more, or maybe you're just getting started, or maybe you've just heard of it but definitely want to know more, or you don't know anything, you're brand new. So I will say that if you are very familiar and have been using it for 6 months or more, this may not be the right webinar for you. It may be a little too basic. But you are absolutely welcome to stay and watch along with everybody else. Just want to get a sense of who is on the call. All right, so it looks like about 80% of you guys have voted so far. We'll just give it a couple more seconds. All right, let's go ahead and close out that poll. Okay, great. So it looks like the majority of the folks on the line are just getting started. That's perfect. We have some folks that have heard of it but want to know more. About 19% of you aren't familiar with EDA at all, so that's great. For the 11% of you who are very familiar, this is just going to be a refresher, and that's totally fine. All right, great. Thank you all for participating. It's helpful for us to know. All right, and we're going to hop back into the presentation. Okay, so before we do anything, I just want to put EDA in the context of the larger Salesforce ecosystem. So it all starts with Salesforce's secure enterprise-grade platform. And at the heart of, and this is a technology that's being used by Fortune 500 companies. It includes flexible case management capabilities through Service Cloud, powerful predictive analytics through Salesforce's Einstein Analytics platform. And then above that, you get Salesforce's Education Cloud, which curates the best tech for education organizations. And at the heart of that is EDA. Here it is. It's a data architecture that we've built specifically for educational organizations. So this provides a standardized set of objects that can be leveraged to create solutions for education organizations. Which brings us to the next level up, and that is the Salesforce education-specific solutions like Salesforce Advisor Link, which provides schools with a window into student needs and provides the tools needed to ensure that no follow-up falls through the cracks. But we also have a K through 12 kit, which sits on top of EDA and basically adds some additional functionality for K-12 customers as well. But it's not just about what solutions Salesforce can provide, because we also have access to a secure app exchange right here at the top, where third parties can create apps and make them available to Salesforce customers, which really unleashes the power of innovation from across our whole community. And it just basically extends Salesforce functionality that much more. I do want to note, and again, you might have seen this in the previous webinar as well, it is important to note that, though, that EDA is not an app. So when you think about an app, for example, if you have a music app, it plays music. If you have an email app, it sends or receives email. It performs a specific task. Well, EDA is actually an architecture, so that means that it creates a foundation for those various apps and processes that you might want to implement. So with that, that means it's very flexible because it's not really set to be a certain way. It can fit any different kind of institution, any different kind of educational process. All right, and when we talk about account model, so the account model is basically how data is organized within your Salesforce org. The EDA account model is very closely aligned to the standard Salesforce account model. So it can operate alongside the standard Salesforce account model, in fact. However, with EDA, Salesforce.org has created an application that provides custom functionality geared toward audiences and workflows for educational institutions. There are two kinds of container accounts in EDA, and the best advice I can give you is to consider which type best represents your contacts and how this might apply to your institution. So the administrative account model has a one-to-one relationship with a contact. So what that means is that for each student or each faculty member or each parent, there's one account associated. So one contact per one account. And then there's the household model that has a one-to-many relationship with contacts. So for example, the household may include a student as well as their family member. So again, these are both available. You'll notice that as you go through our documentation, the administrative account model is frequently referred to as kind of the default. And in most cases, this does work for most institutions. However, be aware that the household account model also exists. And for example, in the advancement space, a lot of times this is the model that makes sense. And also be aware that you can actually use them in conjunction with each other. So both account models can exist within a single Salesforce org, depending on, if you're using Salesforce in multiple ways, maybe the administrative account model works for your student services team and household works for advancement, or however you might want to organize it. It is totally possible to have them both in one org. Okay, and from there, so those are kind of the basics. Let's take a closer look. So this kind of intense diagram, if we look under the hood of EDA, this is what we get. So this is what we call an entity relationship diagram. And it shows us all of the standard and custom objects at play with EDA and how they relate to each other. And I do want to note here that you don't have to use all or even most of these objects. You can pick and choose which EDA objects work for your institution. That's part of what makes EDA so great. Again, it's an architecture, not an application, so it's very flexible. And I do know that there's a lot to absorb here going on in this diagram. So we do recommend that you take a closer look at this after the webinar and maybe even just refer to it as you continue to use EDA. I know that I myself have to refer to it frequently because there's so much going on here and there's so many different connections happening. So just note that obviously this will be in the slides that we post tomorrow, and it is also on the Power of Us Hub, so you can always find this and refer to it. But for now, let's take a closer look at some of the most commonly used of these objects. So we'll start with the account object. And for the sake of this example, we will be following the administrative account model, which means that each account is representative of a single contact. In this case, let's say the contact is a student. Of course, we will also have the student's address or multiple addresses on file. And with that, both the account and by extension the contact would have at least one, but likely more affiliations and relationships. When we talk about affiliations, these can be academic departments, sports teams, and any other institutions that this student is affiliated with. And the student or contact will also have some relationships that are noted through EDA as well. A relationship, unlike an account, will always be with another contact. So relationships are person to person, whereas affiliations are departments, extracurriculars, things like that. So a relationship could be maybe a student's parents or siblings, any kind of relationship that student might have. So with that, let's actually jump into our demo org and take a look at what this actually looks like. So we are in our Advisor Link console. You may or may not have Salesforce Advisor Link. It doesn't really matter. You can use whichever app you currently use if you want to follow along. We're in the Contacts tab. And I do want to note here that you can, of course, customize these tabs by clicking Edit and choosing what you want to appear here. We've selected a current student, Ashley Strahan. And if we look at her details, we scroll down here, we can see her address information, and we can indicate what's her primary address. So maybe this is her home address. And we can also specify another address, like her on-campus housing. So you do have the ability to input multiple pieces there. And if we go to the related lists tab here, we can also see her address here. So again, we can edit, add new address. And talking about affiliations, we have this related list here as well. Maybe Ashley is a new student because she doesn't actually currently have any affiliations listed. Let's add a new affiliation for her. So one common affiliation will be with the student's major department. So let's say that Ashley is majoring in biology, so we want to select this BS in biology. And of course, this just came up because I've searched for it before, but if you have other departments in your, as accounts, you can certainly search for them and add them. I'm just gonna go ahead and select biology. And we can indicate her role. She's a student. And we can say that she's a current student. And if once she graduates, she might be a former student, might update that status. You can indicate a start and end date if you so choose. This could be the duration of her time at your institution. And you can also specify that this is her primary affiliation. So if this is her major, that this will be her primary affiliation. If she was to switch majors, you might have to uncheck this box and check the new affiliation that you create for her. So let's go ahead and click Save. Apologies, sometimes this is a demo org, so sometimes it's a little bit slower. All right, so now we have this affiliation, and if we navigate back to Ashley's record, we can see here, it should appear here. Let's refresh that. Well, her affiliation with that biology department should appear once we reload, hopefully. Great, okay, there it is. For some reason, it's not showing up the biology piece, but that is how you would add it, and hopefully this is just a weird little fluke. All right, and then on to relationships. If we wanted to indicate that, for example, let's say Ashley is, her father was also at your institution, and you want to make sure to relate her to that contact that already exists. So let's search for contacts, and let's select Albert, that's her father. We can say that this is a current relationship, and for type, we can actually specify that Albert is her father. And if we wanted to, we could also indicate that he is her emergency contact here. We can go ahead and click Save. Fingers crossed that this actually appears. And just a note here, for some of the, again, this is a demo org, so there's a little bit of weirdness. You might be seeing NPSB come up. No worries about that. That should not happen in your org. This is just a little bit of a weird thing going on with our demo org. Shouldn't affect any of the demos or anything like that. All right, so we do have this relationship created now. I'm gonna go ahead and click out of that. And in the relationships related list, we do see Albert listed. So that is great. All right, so that's that piece. Let's hop back in to our presentation. So from here, let's talk about program plans and plan requirements. So the program plan is essentially the student's course of study or what they need to complete before they graduate. So this would include their major requirements as well as their general education requirements. Note that once a program plan is assigned to a student, it remains in effect for the duration of the student's time in the program. If the program plan is marked as primary, this is the student's current declared major and overall course of study. However, if they were to switch into a different major, of course, the program plan would change. However, the original program plan would still remain on their record, just not as the primary record. So again, you basically would just have the entire history of that student's program plans within their record, even if they've switched majors or changed into a different program. Now, the plan requirement will cover what is required for a particular program plan. And there are a few different ways that you can handle the plan requirements. So depending on how your majors are structured, for example, you could have a specific course be marked as a requirement. In the case of Ashley, she's a biology major, so Biology 101 may be a required course for a biology major, probably is. Alternately, you can have a group of required courses nested within a plan. So, for example, you might have Biology 101, 201, and 301 as required. Or you can have several courses nested within a plan requirement that a student can choose from to complete a requirement. So, for example, let's say every biology major also needs to complete a humanities requirement, which includes any humanities course 200 level or above. So you might list several humanities courses or allow them to choose from many humanities courses, but none of them are required. They just have to take one, but no single course is actually a requirement. So with that, let's hop back into our demo here. And if we go into program plans, and at this point, by the way, I am in the EDA app. So if you're not familiar with apps, if you haven't attended the last couple of sessions, an app is basically just a collection of tabs that you can access for a particular purpose. So EDA, the app comes standard if you are an education customer. And if you're not in the EDA app and you're not sure how to find it, you can navigate to this app launcher here and search for EDA. It might come up, and if you can't see it in this most recently used apps, you can also click View All and search for it there. So let's just hop into our biology program plan. As you can see here, basically a program plan is just kind of a shell record to collect plan requirements, right? So we can see what requirements are currently listed for biology, and we can see how they're grouped. So if we view all of them, we can see we have a general chemistry requirement, and then there's some that are listed as required and some aren't. So you can, and some of these are nested within, like biology concentration has these courses nested within it. So if we now navigate to a plan requirement, let's say we want to create a new requirement. So humanities for bio, right? We can populate our program plan so that we make sure that this plan requirement does align with a specific plan. Let's choose program plan BS biology. If there's a parent plan requirement, if you are nesting this course within another requirement, you would search for that here. We're not going to do that. And if we wanted to indicate a specific course here, let's say we want abnormal psychology, we can select that as our course. We can say if it's required or optional. Let's say it's required. We can also specify if there's a sequence, what the credit numbers are. Let's say this is a 3-credit course, and we can save it. And now if we were to go into this program plan, we should be able to see that humanities for bio plan requirement that we just created. Let's see if we can find it. Yes, there it is. So here we have populated it in there. All right, now let's hop back in and talk about a few more objects here. So from here we have course-specific information starting with term, which indicates when a course is happening. For example, fall, spring, or full year. And then we have a course, which is essentially just a record of a course being offered at your institution. So it's almost like a long-term course catalog of all the courses that have ever been offered. It doesn't mean that if a course appears as a course within your Salesforce org, doesn't mean that that course is actually being offered, just that it has been offered in the past. And that's important because the course offering object is actually the running of that course. So just for clear distinction there, you might have that Biology 101 course, and it exists because it's been offered before, but the course may or may not be running during any given semester. Maybe it's only offered in the fall, so in the spring semester, you would not have a course offering for that course. So that's an important distinction there. And from there, we also have program enrollment and course connection. So the program enrollment is a junction object that connects a student to their major. A program enrollment connects to the contact and the account, and the student is also listed as being affiliated with the academic program that they've selected. So we actually indicated that Ashley is affiliated with that BS in biology, but if we hadn't and she was enrolled in the program enrollment for biology, that affiliation would automatically fill in there. And also the program enrollment will contain summary academic data, such as enrollment dates and enrollment status. And a course connection is indicating that a student is signed up for a specific course. So if we're talking about this course offering, if a student signs up for a course offering, that will be their course connection. And a course connection can also be applied to a faculty member or a teaching assistant who may be teaching the course. And the way that you would distinguish that is with record types. So you would have a record type for a faculty member, a student, and potentially a TA. And when somebody is signing up for this course connection, you can specify who exactly they are. What is their role in that situation? All right, and back into our org so we can take a look at this. So if we go into terms, we can click all, so we can see all of the terms that are listed. So you can see all of our terms that exist here. Let's say we wanted to create a brand new term. We can do that. Let's create one for fall 2021. We want to link it to biology because, again, we're going to throw in courses and course offerings under that term. We can specify a start date. So let's say this starts in, actually, let's go to 2021. Let's start the term on the 1st of September, and let's say we end it in December. Okay, so we have that. Let's go ahead and click Save. And now we have our term created. There we have it. And now if we go into courses, again, this is basically just a very extensive course catalog of all the courses that have been offered by your institution. So we have tons of courses here. If we click into a specific course, let's just look at History of Christianity, 1300 to the present. Here we have all of the information here that we need. So this course has been offered in the past. We know which department offers it. We know the credit hours, and we have this course ID, which will actually be important for us later. So it's 3413. And now let's go into course offerings and actually create a course offering for that course that we just looked at. So we're going to go ahead and click New. And we do have some record types here. You may or may not have this. Again, this is just a demo org used for multiple purposes, but we do have this record type for EDA course offering. We're going to go ahead and select that. We can search for our course. We do have it kind of pre-populated because we just looked at it. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And here's where we'll put in that course offering ID so that we can reference the course. And we can specify a start date here and an end date. I'm not going to bother going through this, but you can do that. You can also specify which term is being offered. Well, let's roll it under a fall 2021 term. You can find a faculty member who teaches this course. You can specify the capacity. Let's say this can take 300 students. And you can say what's the status of this course offering. So whether it's a current course, a past course, and because it's coming up in fall 2021, I'm just going to put that it is a future or planned course at this time. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And I can go ahead and save. And now we have this course offering created, and it is referencing the course that already exists, and it also is referencing the fall term that we just created. All right, great. So as I mentioned, we haven't gone through every single one of these EDA objects that we saw on that main page. And that's just because I'm just going to go back to this architecture here. There's just a lot going on here, and we just really wanted to focus on some of the most commonly used and the ones that you're likely going to come across. So we're not going to go any further than that. Hopefully this gave you a good look into EDA and how things are structured and organized. And again, you're absolutely not required to use all of these, or you can leave out some or only use a few, whatever works for you. All right, and at this time, I'm just going to really quickly pause for questions. Jenna, do we have any questions?
We've had some come in along the way, but I think that they're getting answered. Again, this recording will be sent to you and will be available in the Power of Us Hub. I know there's been a lot of questions to come back and reference this as you guys are getting up and started with EDA. So that will be available.
Awesome. All right, so as again, feel free to post questions. We certainly have time. I do want to just run through a couple of things. First of all, if you are interested in diving a little bit further into EDA and learning more about this stuff, here is a really good resource guide for you. So we may have referenced it in the past webinar as well. So just you can look at this deck or the previous deck, but basically we do have a section that just gives you some overview on Salesforce if you're brand new. And from there, and this is probably a good place to start if you are, and from there you can get to know EDA. We've listed a bunch of really good resources for you to check out. This EDA documentation link at the top here it's very extensive. There's a lot of information there. So take your time. You can go through them as you're rolling it out in your org and take a look at it piece by piece. And then this third column is really where to find help and support overall. So we do have Trailhead, Salesforce Help and Training. So Trailhead is our gamified learning platform that you can use for free to scale up and learn. There are some EDA modules there. Help and Training is just very basic how-tos. So when you're just learning how to set things up, you can check that out. The Idea Exchange, if you find something that's not that's missing, or you think a feature might make sense, you can post that there and our product team does reference it. And then of course our Power of Us Hub is a really great resource to connect with other education customers, learn what they've been doing with EDA, ask questions as you are getting ramped up. It's a really great place to be. And I know we talked a lot about EDA today. 3 things that you can do after leaving this webinar. First, I mentioned Trailhead before. Definitely explore it. We do have that trail mix that I mentioned earlier. All of the EDA modules or EDA related modules are under that trail mix, so you can check them out and get started there. There are also some Salesforce basics modules as well. Again, if you are brand new to Salesforce. Power of Us Hub, as I mentioned, this is a really great place to collaborate. And finally, as I said earlier, our final webinar in the series will be on reports and dashboards, and that is happening next week on Wednesday, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. So do join us if you can. And I do just want to note that once I close out this webinar, you will get a short survey that pops up. It should only take you just a couple of minutes, and we would really appreciate it if you would complete it. This really helps us prioritize what we work on, and it helps us know what kind of content you're looking for so that we can create it for you in the future. All right, and with that, just checking back in to see if we have any questions.
None at this moment.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all so much for joining us today. It's been great having you. Hopefully this was helpful. And again, please do complete that survey. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.